Hello everyone and welcome. Do you ever wish we could have gotten a sequel to Twilight Princess? A sequel to Majora's Mask? A Zelda game that allowed you to play as Zelda or Sheik? What about a Zelda game that would have mixed elements from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and even Skyward Sword, before Breath of the Wild was even a thought? Today, we're going to take a look at what would have been one of the most unique and interesting takes of a Zelda game that we have ever seen. This darker and more mature Zelda game was a concept by Retro Studios, the team behind the Metroid Prime series. We have discussed it on our 𝐓𝐼𝐢𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 cast, but never gone in depth like we have with almost every other cancelled or unreleased Zelda game. For those new, we have covered a lot of cancelled, unreleased, or beta versions of games, especially when it comes to Zelda, all of which you can find in the playlist linked in the description below. We have a lot of artwork to go through, a description for the story, and even the timeline placement, but it's important to keep in mind this game never made it far into development, though Nintendo did go on to use some of the ideas in future Zelda games. Sammy Hall, a Retro Studios contract artist, had these images uploaded to his online portfolio with brief descriptions. He only refers to the potential game as Cancelled Zelda Project. Quote, fun pre-production origin story of the Master Sword, set within the bad ending of Ocarina of Time, exploring the last male sheiks after a genocidal ethnic cleansing journey transforming into the Master Sword, all while the Dark Gerudo are giving their 100-year birth to Ganon. Hall mentions he worked on the game between 2005 and 2008, meaning it began development around the same time Twilight Princess was just finishing, as it released in 2006. Nintendo did begin development of a Twilight Princess 2, but sadly it was cancelled to quickly release the spin-off, Link's Crossbow Training, while most of the team began work on Skyward Sword, which released in 2011, meaning this game would have likely released on the Nintendo Wii, although seeing all of this on the Wii U in HD would have been amazing. The interesting thing here is that this game would have explained the origins of the Master Sword. It states the last male sheik's journey transforming into the Master Sword. It seems like when this game was cancelled, Nintendo kept some of the elements from it and incorporated it into Skyward Sword's development, which would have just began production, since it also just happens to be about the origins of the Master Sword. And depending on how literal you want to take that quote, Skyward Sword also featured a character transforming into the Master Sword. Even the original artwork for Skyward Sword looked like a mix of Twilight Princess and this cancelled project's artwork. This artwork of what was only known as Zelda Wii was revealed in 2009, less than a year after the project was cancelled. This could just be a coincidence, but Nintendo has stated many times that ideas and concepts from cancelled Zelda games are reused for other Zelda games. Now, let's take a look at the images and see what we can tell about the game. As you will see, just as Breath of the Wild did, this game really took elements from every 3D Zelda game and combined them into an original story. Hall had this image labeled only as Clock Town. Interestingly, it's the only image we see that is in black and white. Nintendo also used a desaturated and almost black and white style for the areas of Hyrule that had been taken over by Twilight, and once again for the Silent Realm of Skyward Sword. Not to mention Wind Waker and Twilight Princess's brief time travel to the past, which showed the world in pure black and white. If this clock town was meant to be inside Termina and not just a nod or Easter egg, perhaps Retro Studios meant for a similar effect, where Hyrule would be in color, but traveling to Termina or Clock Town would reveal this second world with a new art style. It is hard to pick out everything. We can see this area would have been a giant town. The lower middle image shows tall buildings off in the background, a platform of some kind, which reminds me of the platform being built by the carpenters that grows day by day in Majora's Mask. On the left, we have our hero overlooking the town on a bridge or platform, really high up. What stands out the most is the face on the top left. Although obviously different, it gives the same feeling as the mirror shield or other sad faces that we find on masks. What appears to be a tall, skinny monster is seen off in the distance in the right panel. We also have rain and lightning, possibly showing a potential weather system of some kind. Now we have one of my absolute favorite images. Not just one, but an entire race of dragons, like Valu from Wind Waker. This is our hero. We have a few different images from various stages of development. What looks like a first draft design or redesigns. Then we have a light shaded Shiekah with white hair that contrasts perfectly with this darker shaded Shiekah. Or could this be the dark male Gerudo mentioned in the story? The question I have, is our Shiekah hero, who is referred to as Sheik, actually the Sheik, as in Princess Zelda in disguise? Or could this have been Link, trained as a Shiekah, just taking on the name Sheik? Sadly, Zelda games wouldn't put this much of a focus on the Shiekah tribe until Breath of the Wild, where Hyrule is full of them. It would be interesting to see Zelda's story after Ocarina of Time's bad ending when Link dies. But I think this game was meant to take place long after that, but before A Link to the Past. Next we have this. Hall calls it a dark, trilobite-inspired landscape. Trilobite being an ancient extinct marine arthropod, which a lot of science fiction uses as an example for an animal that gives an alien-like appearance. I'm not sure if that is what they were going for in this image, but it does give off an almost alien-like unsettling feeling. I keep thinking, is this meant to be Hyrule or another new world? Possibly even an undiscovered area of Hyrule. We see the trilobite design in the center, with almost mushroom-like shaped plants all over. However, if we look far into the background, we see what looks like giant towers. Interestingly enough, we have Sheik standing on an obelisk, with an obelisk on the right side connecting to a bridge. I may be crazy, but I feel these things far off in the background aren't obelisks or towers at all, but could be weird alien-like giant creatures, almost like a squid with a lot more tentacles that it uses for walking, which is actually hinted to with one of our main bosses that we will get to later. We even have what looks like squid or octopus tentacles up front, with one looking like it is almost wrapping around the obelisk Sheik is standing on, though they could just be more alien-like plants. Here we have an amazing look at what he calls the Dark Gerudo. Once again, notice the paintbrush-like art style. The more I look into this, the more it makes me think that Nintendo did incorporate a lot of the ideas from this game into Skyward Sword. But that is just my speculation, and it all could simply just be coincidence. Here we have a petrified Deku tree. The bottom of the face of the Deku tree looks like it is wrapped up or covered by its own bark. Instead of a forest, it looks like a dark and gloomy toxic or mud-filled swamp of some kind. We do have a forest behind the Deku tree, but it makes me curious as to if the Lost Woods would be in that forested area to the left of the image behind the gates, or if these raised maze-like pathways are meant to act like a puzzle similar to the Lost Woods that need to be correctly traversed as they all lead in different directions, but all seem to start and connect directly to the Deku tree. In this case, would the Deku tree act as a dungeon, as in Ocarina of Time, and the Forest Temple in Twilight Princess? Or would the gates to the left head to the dungeon? Perhaps they both could. The red light from behind the gate is very interesting. Perhaps meant to represent fire off in the distance. Everything does seem to be very smoky, and most of the forested area you would expect to be found around the Deku tree is gone, as if it was burnt down. It's hard to tell exactly what these statues on the side of the gates are meant to be. Reminds me of a more evil, corrupt version of the silhouette from the Gorons, as we've seen designs similar in Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. Lastly, we actually have Sheik running towards this glowing Shiekah light. Comment below what you think the Shiekah symbol could be used for. Maybe some sort of collectible, like the Tears of Light or Korok seeds? A way to navigate correctly through this area? Or even a special effect, like the prompts from Midna when you're playing as Wolflink in Twilight Princess. This image, called Kindlerfish, looks like a reference to Link's Awakening or possibly Phantom Hourglass, as it released in 2007, and this project is stated to have been in development for 3 years, until 2008. Oddly enough, Skyward Sword also ended up using a giant flying well as one of the main characters, and even a boss fight. The blue fire coming off of the platform also reminds me of the colored fire from the goddesses that is used to power up the Master Sword. The bird statue in the background could be inspired by the owl statues from Majora's Mask, but also reminds me of the Loftwing statues from Skyward Sword. Here we have the tentacles making another appearance. Could this be our hero in the background, shining, with the Shiekah symbol, similar to the glow Link or the Master Sword sometimes has? And of course, our villain close up in the front. The half octopus, half man, dark Gerudo, or whatever this thing is. His outfit or overall look reminds me of the characters like 𝐓𝐼𝐬𝐭𝐞𝐫 and even Aster from Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, though it could just be the dark robes. Also interesting, we have more of these dead trees surrounding what looks like it could be an area for a boss fight. A typical small to medium-sized circular area with one way in and one way out. At least, only one that we can see. It also appears this weapon could act as both a bow and arrow and a bladed melee weapon. I'm sure the tentacles would be used in a unique way as well. Here we have an absolutely beautiful Hyrule Castle, sitting incredibly high off the ground, similar to the idea behind the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild, or even Skyloft in Skyward Sword. Most notable on the front gate, or door to the castle, we have what could be an image of our dark hooded friend from before. And I could be crazy, but what looks like a bunch of tentacles below. Just as breathtaking as the castle, this version of Hyrule reminds me so much of looking out across Hyrule Field from the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild, though we don't see any of the dark, spoopy areas from the rest of the concept art. Everything looks like we would expect Hyrule to look. So maybe this is confirmation there could have been a second world. Next, we have an absolutely massive, almost guardian-like boss or enemy. Like a mix between Breath of the Wild's robotic guardians, Ocarina of Time's Armos statues, and even the giant bosses found in Shadow of the Colossus. The quiver or bag on its back looks like it's so large it's carrying trees. Here's another mechanical beast of some kind, though this one looks sad and has an overall steampunk vibe. Without Sheik also in the image for a size comparison, it's hard to tell if this is meant to be a giant enemy or boss like before, or just a mechanical friend like the ancient robots in Skyward Sword, or a smaller mechanical friend. Here is what looks like an interesting take on the Wind Waker artwork of Link on the globe of Hyrule. This time, we can see the Ocarina of Time is featured prominently. Perhaps it and music would have still played a large role in the game, as it did in previous games. Maybe this is a hint our Sheik is actually Zelda, time-traveling or adventuring on her own to undo the death of Link. We already know at the end of Ocarina of Time, she knows how to send Link in the past. So maybe she knows how to travel through time herself. We see tentacles coming from the oceans, the moon and music notes, but everything else is a bit too abstract for me to tell. Though it is curious we see what looks like multiple large land masses. The left and right side even parallel each other. Perhaps a nod to Hyrule and Termina, or whatever second world this game would have had. Sheik is sitting on top with light shading, and the tentacle beast is coming from below. Another parallel of the duality in this image. Here we have a lot going on. We have a large landmass on the left side, mountains off in the distance, and another mountain coming down to the right. We also have giant horns or spikes making a path down towards the landmass in the middle. Though at first glance, I would have thought this standing island was actually alive. And honestly, it could be. But this bridge to the left, connecting it to the land, makes me think otherwise. Though it could be a tail, or even retractable, or completely removable. Either way, with divine beasts from Breath of the Wild and giant monsters we previously seen with trees in its backpack, it's certainly possible. It almost reminds me of the horror designs of the original divine beasts from Breath of the Wild, which also had entire villages and forests on their backs. We can also see what reminds me of a Gerudo Tower or Shiekah Tower standing in the very middle. What do you think of this? Could it just be a village raised above the water? Could it be alive, like the divine beasts? Comment below and let us know. Now, giveaway winner time. Remember, we will still be giving away $60 eShop cards when we reach 97,000, 98,000, 99,000 subscribers, and the big Nintendo Switch, Skyward Sword, and Joy-Con, or a $200 eShop card giveaway for reaching 100,000 subscribers. Don't think that's it though. We have 2 or 3 other giveaways right now. We gave away the first bonus eShop card to the live chat on the last 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐝𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐻�00 GamesCast for those who are subscribed or a member of our Discord. After we reach 100,000 subscribers, we won't be ending the giveaways. Instead of $60, we will be giving away $100 eShop cards for every 10,000 new subscribers. And we are thinking about doing $50 eShop cards for every 5,000 subscribers. So for example, we would give away $50 at 105,000 subscribers, $100 at 110,000 subscribers, $50 again at 115,000 subscribers, and repeating, with bigger giveaways for reaching special milestones, like 125,000 or 150,000 subscribers. Maybe more Nintendo Switches or whatever new consoles Nintendo has at the time. Or to make it easier for everyone, just sending the money through PayPal to be used on whatever you would like. With all of that out of the way, the winner of the $60 eShop card for us reaching the 96,000 subscribers goal is Linked Shipped, which almost made me say a bad word, who says, "Best Zelda channel ever. I fall asleep to your videos." Well, thank you. We actually hear that quite a bit, that people enjoy listening to our different voices, and even fall asleep listening to our Zelda theories, top 10 videos, or other playlists, especially our Zelda podcast, the 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐝𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐵 selected from the live 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐝𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐬𝐽𝐽𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 Despite the last winner and the new winner both leaving really positive comments, that is not why they were picked at all. I use a program that picks at random. It's just you are all so amazing, and so many of you just happen to leave so many positive comments. It would be rare if we picked one that wasn't positive, which we got a lot of even before we started this big giveaway. So again, thank you all for being so amazing and awesome. Have a great day.